I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Thank you, Amani. This school board meeting is called to order. So, Amani, what is your favorite subject at Dundee Elementary?
Favorite subject?
Your favorite subject? Do you have a favorite
reading.
subject? Reading? Very good. So,
Yes. Awesome.
and what would you like to do when you grow up?
When I grow up, I would like to either be an environmentalist or architect.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You did a wonderful job. Do you have somebody here with you? Would you introduce them, please?
Yes, I have the principal of my school, the best principal, actually. And I also have the best parents a kid can ever have. My mom and my dad. And the best brothers and sisters I can ever have. Here.
Please stand up so we can
Everybody stand
recognize
up.
you. Yes.
I would like to share that Amani scored a perfect 10 on the FSA writing test
Wow.
last year.
Very
Wow.
cool.
I'm reading it down. Teachers, and he has something to share with you.
So, for our books, we are reading. There's this webpage on our DEA website where we're reading a book called Mr. Limoncello's Secret Library and Escape from It. I would like to hand out these bookmarks for having you guys listen to what I have to say.
Thank you. That's to encourage us to read, right? Yep, okay.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Amani, thank you again. You did a wonderful job. At this time, I would entertain a motion to accept the September 17, 2019 school board meeting agenda. Please remember this meeting was a combination of the September 3rd meeting that was rolled into the September 17th meeting as a result of Hurricane Dorian. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the September 17, 2019 school board meeting agenda. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any additions?
Oh, I apologize.
Yes, there is. Item C12, Board Member Travel, add attachment revised item. Item R53, Resolution 2019-2020-08, add item revised item. Item R54, Convene Financing Corporation, add item. Item R55, Resolution 2019-2020-09, add item revised backup. Item R56, Reconvene School Board meeting, add item. Item R64, 2019-2020, Final Budget and Millage Rates, revised item. Finally, item R66, Request to advertise a public hearing, add item. That concludes the revisions for today.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent, and thank you, Ms. Fields, for bringing that to my attention. Mr. Bridges, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to amend that motion to include the revise
The motion will cover the agenda as it's published.
as was published?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the September 17, 2019 school board meeting agenda as published. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Madam Superintendent, we have special recognitions.
Yes, we do. I would like to ask School Board Member Billy Townsend to please step to the front for our special recognition. Next, I would like to ask Cheryl Joe, Senior Director for Professional Development, please come forward to recognize 3 principals for completing their educational specialist degree for turnaround schools.
To the board chair, to the superintendent,
It is a wonderful opportunity for me to speak with you and recognize some wonderful accomplishments of our principals. We know that knowledge is power. To know how to do a job and accomplishment of labor, to be available to tell others, is the accomplishment of the teacher. To inspire others to do better work is the accomplishment of these individuals. And to be able to do all three shows the accomplishment of true leaders. I want to thank the superintendent for investing in our leaders to grow them in leadership at the University of South Florida, and to also be a partner in helping to finance that educational specialist degree. And one of our members is actually going on with just 30 more hours to get their EDD. I like to recognize for you Terry Christian from Denison Middle School, who received her educational specialist degree with the help of our district. Before she comes up, come on up, come on. Come on up. They did a capstone project over in Hillsborough County with the cohort of Hillsborough County, who has been in this pipeline partnership to advance the education of our leaders. This degree and this specialist degree is special because it is innovation for turnaround schools. So they took that leadership opportunity to work on a capstone project with the importance of how teachers thrive in the context of turnaround schools. That's what their capstone project. You all would have been proud over in Hillsborough County on July 22nd to see these three. Terry, a Christian, and this certificate of congratulations to Terry Christian for a recipient of her educational specialist degree from the University of South Florida in partnership with the School Board of Polk County. This is signed by Dr. Michael H., who really helped us put this in place, as well as myself. And Mr. Townsend, would you present that to, and if you would come up front, Ms. Kristen. Thank you. Our next recipient, and it reads the same. Stay up there, because we're going to get all three of you. And yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't come much, but thank you. Is a wonderful principal and a friend. And they are all my children. I'm about old enough to be. And I really, really admire them so much. Sybil Odom Jackson.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I also have a wonderful gentleman who I've known for many years, and he is going on to get his EDD, and we are so proud of him. Mr. Michael Young from Mulberry High School. We have today, and if you would indulge me just for a moment, we have been in partnership with the University of South Florida for a long time. I will share with the board all the things and all the accomplishments that we have done with our partnership. But I want to commend a former district director and a assistant superintendent and a principal in Pasco County, and now a professor at University of South Florida, who worked so closely. We worked together many years ago for the Job Embedded Grant. That was a $2.5 million grant in Polk County. He is my friend, my colleague, Dr. John Mann.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. It's such a pleasure to be here and to represent the University of South Florida. This is our first cohort in the EDS program, but we've been partnering for several years. We're starting our 8th cohort with a different partnership that we have with Polk County as we work on administrative training and work. And so it's quite a pleasure to be here this evening and to see their recognition and to be a partner with you. Thank you.
I want to thank the group, and I'm going to join them in the picture with Dr. Mann, if you don't mind. And we will share with you all the college and university partnerships. Again, the superintendent is investing in our own so that we have the most skilled instructional leadership. We have so many of our partners. We have 50 starting their educational leadership degree with a grant with Dr. Longa and the partnership that is starting with University of South Florida. We have other cohorts with the University, Florida Southern University. This is an investment in our own, and we are so proud. Thank you.
And if you would like to, if either of you would like to have comments at this time.
I just want to say thank you to Ms. Cheryl Joe and also the superintendent and USF for what they've done for not only me professionally, but also personally. It's nice to work into a district that is willing to invest in professionals, but not only just know the person that is in the system. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I know that my cohort is grateful because we've been together for well over a year and a half, and it does take leaders, or should I say a superintendent and leaders in the district that are willing to go out there and take you to the edge in places that you're not willing to go. So thank you to the superintendent and also the board for investing in her and allowing her to take us to that edge where we hadn't gone before. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent, board members, also Ms. Joe. I would also like to thank you for the opportunity to grow professionally and personally. We truly have grown and developed as friends. We continue to text one another, check on one another, share best practices, but it is very heartwarming to know that our district has invested in us, that you saw fit and saw it worthy of us to be participants in this EDS program. So thank you.
Hey, I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues that when we come up against a wall, we think, what else can we do? And our experience has been there are answers out there. And we look forward to being able to apply those in our practice in our district. So thank you.
Thank you and congratulations. Next, I would like to ask Susan Copeland, Executive Director of Polk Education Foundation, to come forward for supervision of the election, with Lori Edwards to come forward also for the high school voter registration recognition. Are they here? Okay. They're not here, so we'll move forward. I would like to ask for Jeanette Crowley. Is Jeanette here? Senior Coordinator for Strategic Partnerships, to come forward for recognition of the Lakeland North Rotary Club.
Thank you. The Lakeland North Rotary Club has been supporting our schools with programs for approximately 13 years. The bus program provides belts, undergarments, shoes and socks, as well as other necessities for 26 of our Lakeland area public elementary schools. At the beginning of each year, club ambassadors go out to the 26 schools and meet with school administrators. Last school year, they gave a total of $5,800 for the bus and mentoring programs. In addition, they have involvement in our schools involving dictionaries for third grade students in 8 of our elementary schools, funding for incentives for students who are involved in tutoring programs, hosting a club speech contest for students for Lakeland area high schools and providing cash awards to those participants, sending 3 high school juniors to a week-long Rotary Leadership Conference each June at Florida Southern College, sponsoring 2 high school Rotary Interact clubs, donating over 1,000 children's books to Read While You Roll literacy program, and volunteering in our schools and participating on various school advisory council committees. As you can see, Lakeland North Rotary Club is very active as a community partner with us. We're extremely thankful for their constant involvement, support, dedication, and partnership with our schools. At this time, it's my pleasure to invite Al Dotson, past club president, to come forward, say a few words, and accept our certificate of appreciation from Polk County Public Schools. Al, can you please come forward?
Thank you very much for honoring us this evening. You know, Rotarians don't do this for the honors. They do it because one of the fundamental focus areas of Rotary is literacy. And we've taken that, our club has taken that on. We do other things, but we're really involved with our schools. We love our schools. We have an ambassador for each of our 26 schools that visit the schools. So we know those principals. We know some of the teachers and administrators, and we know what an outstanding job they're doing. It was really neat to see Lena here this evening because when she was at Kathleen, that was one of our schools, and 2 of our Rotarians were actually on her SAC committee. So thank you very much for this honor again.
Thank you, Al. I'd like to invite you, as well as other club members, to please come forward so we can get a picture.
Thank you and congratulations. I would now like to ask Lori Cunningham to please read the Attendance Month proclamation. Kim Lone, Executive Director of Polk Vision, will accept the proclamation.
Is she here? There she is. I didn't see you hiding. Come on up at the podium. Yes, ma'am. There we go. Proclamation, School Board of Polk County, Bartow, Florida. Whereas good attendance is essential to student achievement and graduation, and we are committed to dedicating our resources and attention to reducing chronic absenteeism rates with a focus starting as early as pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. Whereas chronic absence, that is missing 10% or more of school for any reason, including excused and unexcused absences, or just 2 of 3 days a month, is a proven predictor of academic trouble and dropout rates. Whereas chronic absence is now a required reporting metric under the federal Every Student Succeeds Act, whereas improving attendance and reducing chronic absence takes commitment, collaboration, and tailored approaches to challenges and strengths in each community, whereas chronic absence predicts lower third grade reading proficiency, course failure, and eventual dropout, it weakens our communities and our local economy. Whereas absenteeism also undermines efforts to improve struggling schools, since it's hard to measure improvement in classroom instruction if students are not in class to benefit from them. Whereas schools and community partners can reach out more frequently to absent students to determine what barriers they face to attending school and what would help them attend more regularly. Whereas all students, even those who show up regularly, are affected by chronic absence because teachers must spend time reviewing for students who missed lessons. Whereas chronic absence can be significantly reduced when schools, families, and communities work together to monitor and promote good attendance and address hurdles that keep children from getting to school. Whereas we hereby commit to focusing on reducing chronic absenteeism to give all children an equitable opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive academically, emotionally, and socially. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the School Board of Polk County hereby proclaims September as Attendance Awareness Month.
So I want to thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. We would have visited with you earlier this month, except Dorian sidetracked our original plans. Polk Vision values our relationship. I think you all know that we are focused through our collaborative work on placing students first, top of mind for the majority of our teams. We're committed to strategically aligning resources so that we can help remove barriers so that students can do their best work. While we're actively addressing persistent issues such as literacy, college and career readiness, and most recently, the Public Health Department has declared emotional and mental and behavioral health as the #1 concern in our county. We at Polk Vision are addressing all of those consistently and persistently together with all of you. We also should take the time to celebrate. So we're here today to celebrate a number of things. I want to celebrate the dramatic rise in high school graduation rates over the past several years. I'd also like to celebrate your sustained school grade, district school grade of a B. Yeah, go. I'm very proud of that. And we also want to talk about the widespread adoption. All of our municipalities unanimously are concerned about sidewalk access so students can get safely to and from school. So we appreciate the collaboration not only with the district, but our municipal leaders and our county. So today I'm here to recognize the work of volunteers. We've got Neil Steiger here from the Rotary who double dipped. He's also on our attendance team. Those Rotarians in North Lakeland, they're overachievers. But I also have with me our attendance team chairs, Shannon Gillespie, who's with Polk County Public Schools, and Chandra Frederick, who's with Polk County Board of County Commissioners. Reducing student absenteeism, as you know, is top of mind for us. And as the proclamation stated, preschool and kindergarten chronic absenteeism leaves third graders behind. By the time they reach sixth grade, they're struggling with their coursework, and they're on target for ultimately being very, very frustrated as students, disengaged, and headed to be off track for graduation. So we adopted 2 years ago. You may remember we once again were sidetracked with year one because of another hurricane. So we've actually been at this for about 1.5 school years. We piloted the Strive for Less Than 5 campaign that all of you have supported for the last two sessions, and we are pleased with our outcomes. So I want to just briefly show you some of the things we've been up to. Of course, we're celebrating Attendance Awareness Month. We've been out in the community prior to today's visit, though. We relaunched at the 5 attendance schools that we've been piloting. We had sustained year-long messaging. Our members of our team actually have been going out to campuses. As you've visited campuses, you may have seen us out there high-fiving students as they arrive. We're also working at a grassroots level, trying to raise awareness among the community and parents. And I'd like to just celebrate that our chronic absenteeism rates have significantly been reduced in the majority of our schools. So all of the chronic absenteeism rates, all of the 5 pilot schools have made gains in this initiative, and we'd like to thank the staff, the students, and their parents for taking attendance seriously as we've continued this program. So due to the success of the 5 pilot schools, 15 additional schools stepped forward on their own and asked to be provided with the materials. We'd like to celebrate and thank them as well. We'll be monitoring them and providing supports, but we will continue to place specific emphasis on the pilot schools, trying to make even more gains there. So I'd like to say that sustainable change takes time. As you know, Polk Vision is playing the long game together with you. We're not into short-term fixes because we do not believe that you can fix long-term problems with a short-term Band-Aid. The team will continue to work closely with the Challenge 5 schools, and our focus will be to deepen parent engagement, increase volunteer support, and continue to work those great relationships with school staff. Placing students first is the focus of all of our teams. We recognize that education is a key component to the successful future of our community, and it is at the heart of our work and our shared vision for the future. Thank you very much.
To stand?
We should stand.
I think last time we did stand. Yeah, last time we did stand. Yeah. The end of the meeting.
There we go. Everybody scoot in. Come on. Can you get us all?
Give us a high five. Come on, strive for less than 5.
All right.
Mr. Chair, this concludes our special recognitions for today.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. A little later in the meeting, we will have an opportunity for folks to offer comments about things that are occurring here in the district. At this time, if you would like to come forward and speak to an item that is on the published agenda, this is for folks who'd like to speak to items on the published agenda, please come so and do so at this time. Please come forward and do so at this time. Would you give us your name, sir, and what is the item you'd like to speak to?
My name is Ryan Azinski, and I'd like to speak to items C16 through 38, the donations.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, Superintendent Byrd, honorable board members. My name is Ryan Hazinski, and I am a 16-year veteran teacher over in Hillsborough County. I am a restless nerd. I've taught language arts, social studies, mathematics, been a new teacher mentor. I'm currently the Theory of Knowledge teacher, which is the capstone course for the International Baccalaureate program at Strawberry Crest High School, just down the street on I-4. And the donations caught my eye on the agenda for one specific reason. Isn't it a shame that we need to get donations for a school district? Florida has a $1 trillion economy. We are the third most populous state in the United States. We're the fourth biggest economy in the US. We're the 17th biggest economy in the world. And yet, we are 45th in public ed funding. We are 48th in teacher pay. How is this right? How do we reconcile these things? I moved to Florida 20 years ago when we were 27th and 29th, respectively, for those same numbers. And in that time, the Florida legislature has just squeezed blood from a stone. To now where we have to cut back on our staff, our services, kids are struggling, they're stressed out. This is not right. Think about it. If you are a parent, many of you in the audience are probably parents, many of you at home are parents, you have a moral obligation to care for your child. We elect so-called leaders to the Florida legislature, and as an institution, it has clearly failed us. It is a moral failure to not fund education in this state. If you ask me, we may get an A+ in efficiency when it comes to Florida public ed because of costs, but it's an F- when it comes to the humanity of our students and the educators in classrooms all over the state. So I've been encouraging a lot of my teacher friends to take a personal day on January 14th, 2020, which is the first day of the legislative session. I hope that Polk educators all over the county do so, but more importantly, what we need at this point is your help. We need school board members and superintendents all over the state to take a stand with us. We cannot tolerate this behavior from the legislature. We will not tolerate this behavior from the legislature. We need to stand together for our children. To not do so otherwise is also a moral failure, because when we are silent, we are complicit. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Larry Milhorn, president of ASME Local 2227, and I just wanted to speak on the budget. I know you're going to vote on the budget tonight. I'm not happy with the budget because the people I represent are not going to get anything with this budget. And I know it's not all the district's fault, like the young man just said. This here is more than what the district can handle on account of our legislature. But I want the public to start getting on the legislature, to start telling them what's happening in our schools today. We're punishing our children. We're not punishing the employees, because when we don't have good employees, the children suffer. And the public's got to make that there known in the state legislature, because if they don't do that, we can't do it alone. We need the people in Polk County to rise up and go and contact their legislatures and let them know they're not happy with the way they fund our schools. The people I represent, we can't hire employees. I know we're short 4 electricians, getting ready to be 5. We're short 3 carpenters, and I think 2 or 3 plumbers. We can't hire these people. The electrician's been over a year. We can't hire them because the construction's going so good on the outside. These people don't want to come to work here. They're making too much money on the outside. And if we don't start fixing this, we're not only going to not hire these people, but our teachers are going to be leaving because they're going to get tired because they're not making the money that they should do for what they're doing. They're educating our children. That should be the highest paid job in this county to me, because those children are our future. And without people supporting our teachers and our employees by going to the legislature and letting them know to fund our county. And I hope that you all decide to work on the 1 mil, because I believe we need that here in this county. Because we got to support these employees somehow, or they're going to start leaving in droves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milhorn. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to specific agenda items?
My name is Stephanie Yoakum. I am the president of Polk Education Association, and I'm speaking to the budget item that you guys will be voting on tonight. Again, to kind of piggyback off what Larry said, we're kind of at this turning point where the DOE is sending all this bonus money down in these grants, and then they're changing the rules in the middle of the game. And so I think our message jointly together needs to be, we need raises, not bonuses, and we need to be collaborating together and telling the DOE and telling our legislator, what are you gonna do if we don't do X, Y, and Z that you are suddenly changing these rules around? I think it's time that we push back as a team. You know, we push back a lot, but I think if they start seeing unions and districts join together and bring our community in all together and say, we are not going to take this anymore. Going to the millage rates, we need a mill. We need it sooner rather than later. You, as a board, have the power to bring money into our district for raises and benefits. And I don't think we can wait until 2022. I think that you might need to take the political hit and do it now on the general election in 2020. Our folks cannot wait till 2020, well, actually 2023 till they probably see any money, because you have to raise the money. We know insurance is in trouble. You cannot say that you're gonna put $9 million every year into insurance and think that they're not gonna get any raises for 5 years. We've got to come together and work on this as a district, as a union, as community stakeholders. Please consider the mill. I know that it was talked briefly about in the work session. You guys are going to be talking with a consultant for free, which was nice to hear. We need this mill sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Ms. Yoakum. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to specific agenda items? Okay, we'll move on to our agenda. At this time, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. We'll start with item C8, and this is approval of the minutes of the August 20th, 2019 school board meeting. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the minutes of the August 20th, 2019 school board meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is C9, and this is approval of the minutes of the July 30th, 2019 work session. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the minutes of the July 30, 2019 work session. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is C10, and this is approval of the minutes of the July 30, 2019 school board meeting. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? The motion on the floor is approval of the minutes of the July 30, 2019 school board meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is C11, and this is approval of the consent agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval of the consent agenda for today's meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Madam Superintendent, we have new administrators.
We have none today.
We have no new administrators. So the next item on the agenda is item R54, and this is approval of a resolution 2019-2020-08, amending the 2014 and 2015 A and B COPS moving forward to refund the 2015 A and 2015 B COPS and terminating the swaps, and approving the extension of the 2015 A and 2015 B optional tender date. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of Resolution 2019-2020-08. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So at this time, the regular school board meeting is recessed, and a meeting of the Finance Corporation is convened. So our regular school board meeting is recessed, and I've convened a meeting of the Finance Corporation. We have one item on the agenda for the Finance Corporation, and this is item R56. And this is approval of Resolution 2019-2020-09 for the Financing Corporation amending the 2014 and 2014 A and 2015 B COPS, moving forward to refund the 2015 B and 2015 A COPS, and terminating swaps, and approving the extension of the 2014 A and 2015 B optional tender date. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor for the Financing Corporation is the approval of Resolution 2019-2020-09. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So at this time, the Finance Corporation is adjourned. The Finance Corporation meeting is adjourned, and the regular school board meeting is reconvened. And we'll move along to item R53. And this is a motion to accept and upload the 2018-2019 report of the financial data, the superintendent's annual financial report to the Commissioner of Education by the adjusted deadline of September 20th, as required by the Florida Department of Education. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is to accept and upload the 2018-2019 report of the financial data, the superintendent's annual financial report to the Commissioner of Education by the adjusted deadline of September 20th, as required by the Florida Department of Education. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R57, and this is approval of a contract with Parlier and Cruz Architects in the amount of $294,460. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the contract with Parlier and Cruz Architects in the amount of $294,460. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is item R58, and this is approval of the acquisition of approximately 38 acres for a new middle school in the northeastern part of the county. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? The motion on the floor is approval of the acquisition of roughly 38-acre site for a new middle school in the northeastern part of the county. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R59, and this is approval of the acquisition of approximately 20 acres as the future site of Elementary School Project 25C. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I have a question, Madam Superintendent. Is this in the northeast section as well? It is. Both of them are?
Yes,
Okay.
they both
Thank
are.
you. All right, so the motion on the floor is approval of the acquisition of approximately 20 acres as the future site of the Elementary School Project 25C. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R60, and this is a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2020, fiscal year 2024 5-year capital plan and budget. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is to adopt the fiscal year 2020, fiscal year 2024 5-year capital plan and budget. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R61, and this is approval of receipt of the Head Start Administration continuation grant in the amount of $8,060,855 for the Head Start 2020 program. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the receipt of the Head Start Administration continuation grant in the amount of $8,060,855 for a Head Start program for 2020. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R62. And do we have two items here to vote on?
Yes.
Okay, two motions. The first motion is approval of the name change of Polk Acceleration Academy to Polk Grad Academy. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Reynolds.
I just want to highlight that this is being done because Acceleration Academy, we can no longer use that name legally. We're not just superfluously changing a school's name. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds, for that clarification. So the motion on the floor is approval of the name change of Polk Acceleration Academy to Polk Grad Academy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is approval of the name change of Davenport Community Campus to Fresh Start Community School. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the name change of Davenport Community Campus to Fresh Start Community School. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda are policy updates, and at this time I'd like to ask Mr. Bridges to read into the record the policy updates that we're proposing.
Normally, our governmental liaison, Wendy Dodge, is present to introduce policy changes. Mrs. Dodge has been called to Tallahassee and asked me to step in. We have a number of policies to be addressed by the board tonight. They had first reading last month, and they're here for final adoption in accordance with the provisions of the Administrative Procedures Act. And these are primarily changes to policies to reflect changes in federal and state law and regulation. Policy 2260, non-discrimination and access to equal educational opportunity. Policy 3122, also non-discrimination, equal employment opportunity. 3362, anti-harassment. 4162, drug and alcohol testing of CDL license holders. 5120, assignment within district, which has to do with creating attendance zones for schools. 5517, anti-harassment. 6830, external financial audits. And 6835, internal audit services. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. So at this time, I would invite anyone who would like to come forward and offer comments about the policy updates that were just read into the record by Mr. Bridges to please do so. Any public comments about the policy changes that were just read into the record? So seeing none, at this time I would entertain a motion to approve the policy updates reviewed by the board during the work session on July 30, 2019. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the policy updates reviewed by the board during the work session on July 30, 2019. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would invite Mr. Perrone to come forward and talk to us about the millage items that we'll be voting on this evening.
Good evening. I'm going to give you a background on how we got here this evening, and then I think the board would like Mr. Jason Pitts to come up and do a 5-minute summary of the highlights or lowlights of the budget that we are going to approve. So on Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019, the board approved the advertisement for fiscal 2019-2020 proposed millage rates and tentative budget. To be run on July 27th in the Lakeland Ledger, and that is required by Florida statute. In accordance with TRIM, the Truth in Millage requirements, the board held a public hearing on Tuesday, July 30th to discuss the budget and the proposed tax levies. The board then adopted the fiscal 2019-20 millage rates and tentative budget and announced that the public hearing, the final public hearing would be on September 3rd, 2019. However, due to the hurricane, the district was closed for those 2 days after on the 3rd and 4th, so they rescheduled to this evening, and we are here this evening to finalize and vote the final budget. I just want to read the millages, the changes from last year, and then again, before the board actually votes, we'll have Mr. Pitts come up. The proposed millage rates are as follows. and including the reason for any changes. The required local effort is 3.838. That's a difference of 0.165, a reduction of 0.165 from last year, and that is required by state law. They set that. The discretionary operating is 0.748 mils, and that is the same as last year. And then we have the 1.5 local capital improvement millage, and that is the same as last year. So we have a total millage of 6.086, and again, it is a total decrease of 0.165 mils. As you know, we've talked about in our legislative platform to work on not having the reduction. We talked about how much that we lose when we have our millages down. I just want to mention last that these rates reflect an increase in the total rolled back rate of 1.72%. That needs to be read into the minutes for the final part of trim. And I'm going to turn it over and let Mr. Pitts do his summary, which he did for the board, but we'll get it on air, so for the folks who weren't here to make it. So, oh, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Perone. Good evening, board members, superintendent. I won't read as much verbiage as I did earlier today to explain how we got here today. I just want to say that September 3rd was our original date of the public hearing, and due to Hurricane Dorian, as everyone knows, we had to close operations. The state issued an executive order to allow us to reschedule this meeting until tonight, September 17th. So before you, the board will be asked to adopt the fiscal year 1920 final budget in the amount of $1,814,254,918 across all funds. This is an increase of $346,872,551 over the fiscal year 1819 adopted budget. Some of the highlights, which I'm not sure we can really call them highlights, but some summary of areas of our budget, we'll call it that. General fund, we'll see an increase this year of $81,689,060 over the fiscal year 19 adopted budget. Of this $81.7 million increase, $32.6 million is an increase in revenue from the Florida Education Finance Program, otherwise known as the FEFP. The remaining increase of $49 million is due to the carry forward of fund balance and an increase in transfers from capital funds. Of the $32.6 million increase in revenue from the state, $4.7 million is from a new restricted categorical called Turnaround Supplemental Services, which provides additional funding for our schools designated in turnaround status. Another new restricted categorical was added. That's called the Best and Brightest Scholarship Award of $9.8 million. This is a complete redesign of the Best and Brightest Award that was started 4 years ago. This award program was previously funded directly from Florida Department of Education's budget. This year they shifted it into our own budget. So although it's $9 million extra in revenue, it goes straight out to our staff, just like it did in the previous few years. Approximately $15 million of that $32 million in new revenue is purely discretionary funding, which we will use to pay for the growth in students experienced this year, along with other operating increases such as the Florida retirement system. The fiscal year 1920 budget is a flat level of service budget, which means the district will be able to provide the same programs and services as we did in the fiscal year 1819 budget. Fund balance is budgeted at 3.05%, slightly above the 3% required by the state. We expect to end the year at an actual fund balance of 4 to 4.5%. Again, that comes from salary lapse from unfilled positions during the year. Unless we see a substantial change in funding revenue from the state, the district will need to decrease our level of service next year to meet fund balance requirements. Capital funds make up the primary increase in our overall budget. Capital funds this year is budgeted at $457.6 million. This is an increase over $276.5 million from the fiscal year 19 budget. $192 million of this was a bond that was issued in 2019 so we could immediately start the construction of 3 schools. Additionally, we did not budget last year the entire amount of sales tax revenue since that was up for referendum, which the voters did approve, which now gives us back the full revenue from sales tax, which is approximately $48 million a year. That's all that I have for a summary. If there's any questions from any of you, I'd be glad to answer those questions.
Yeah, before we move on to the vote, I would offer to the board members, if you have any questions or comments for Mr. Pitts or Mr. Perone, this would be the time to do that. Ms. Fortney?
So I'm going to read my Joe Biden quote for everybody again. Don't tell me what you value, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value. And I cannot vote for this budget because, you know, we have a staffing plan that's in here that I do not agree with. We have overcrowded classrooms, no steps, no raise for any of our employees, increase in insurance cost, no decrease in workload, and of course we're losing units at different schools. And I go back to the overcrowded classrooms. We're at a tipping point right here, and the gentleman that spoke earlier, Ryan, he is exactly right. We must unite and fight for public education. So I will not be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Townsend?
Just sort of dovetailing onto Ms. Fortney. Some of those things will get addressed and worked out when a collective bargaining agreement comes to us. What the exact structure of raises versus insurance versus workload is going to be, I don't think is determined yet, but it's not going to be good. So I just wanted to point that out, that we'll get another crack at some of this apple on, especially around workload and language like that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Thank you, Mr. Pitts.
Thank you.
We appreciate the summary. So we have several motions here. We'll start with the first one, and this is adoption of the required local effort, RLE, in the amount of 3.898 mils. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is adoption of the required local effort in the amount of 3.898 mils. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes.
I'm reading 3.838 mils.
3.8338. I apologize. So my copy says 3.838.
Yes, sir. If you would, just obtain a fresh motion at that level.
Okay.
And we'll strike the last vote.
Before I do that, I was remiss in not inviting the public to come forward to comment. So at this time, if there's anyone from the public who would like to comment on the millage rates or the budget, please do so. Apologize. Okay, so I would entertain a new motion to adopt the required local effort of 3.838. Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor, to be clear, is adoption of the required local effort in the amount of 3.838 mils. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is adoption of the discretionary operating millage in the amount of 0.748 mils.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Are you checking me on these, Mr. Pitts, as we go on? All right, so Mr. Townsend.
Yeah, I just want to point out this thing says discretionary, but it's not just discretionary. I just want to point that out for the reality. It's just the way the state does the crazy budget structure. It's not really a discretionary mill. We could not vote not to do it, so, because we don't have a lot of discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. So the motion on the floor is adoption of the discretionary operating millage in the amount of 7.8 mils. All, excuse me, 0.748 mils. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Motion
Nay.
carries.
I oppose it all, so.
Okay, so we do have one in opposition, one vote in opposition. The next item is adoption of the local capital improvement millage in the amount of 1.5 mils. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is adoption of the local capital improvement millage in the amount of 1.5 mils. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. The next item is approval of Resolution 2019-2020-03 determining revenues and millages levied for 2019-2020. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of Resolution 2019-2020-03 determining revenues and millages levied for 2019-2020. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. The next item is approval of Resolution 2019-2020-04 adopting the 2019-2020 final budget and millage rates. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And so the motion on the floor is approval of Resolution 2019-2020-04 adopting the 2019-2020 final budget and millage rates. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. And the last item is approval of Resolution 2019-2020-05 and adopting categorical allocation flexibility for fiscal year 2019-2020. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? The motion on the floor is approval of Resolution 2019-2020-05 adopting categorical allocation flexibility for fiscal year 2019-2020. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Nothing personal. Mr. Pierce.
Okay, and that moves us to our attorney's report.
Or to the superintendent's report, perhaps.
That moves us to the superintendent's report. As you can
You're moving
tell,
us
I was a
along.
little quick with my notes this evening.
Not a problem. There will be a work session held on Tuesday, October the 8th, 2019 at 9 a.m. in the superintendent's conference room. There will also be a work session held on October 22nd at 12:30 p.m. in the superintendent's conference room, followed by the 5 p.m. school board meeting held in the auditorium located here at 1915 South Floor Avenue, Bartow, Florida. And, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, if I take a few moments to just address one of the issues during my report.
Certainly, of course.
Thank you. Many of you are here today regarding the unfortunate incident that did happen on one of our campuses, Blake Academy. As a mother, lifelong educator, you know, these are some things that should never happen. These are things that disturb me. I'm very heartbroken by what happened on one of our campuses. I want to say personally, and to the victim and their parents, we apologize for what happened. This should not happen in schools, as I said once before. Schools are a place where students come to learn, grow, and imagine their future. These things should not happen on campus. As a superintendent, I can pledge to you that we try to make all of our campuses a safe place for students to learn and grow. We will continue to make them a safe place for students to learn and for them to grow. We offer our apologies and our sympathy for what happened to the child on that evening or that day at Blake. What I can tell you is that we are investigating. We are continuing to investigate alongside with the Lakeland Police Department. They're investigating this incident. I cannot go into the details of what has occurred and what has happened due to the federal and state laws and the privacy for the students. But what I can tell you is that We're going to continue to investigate to make sure that we put systems in place. This does not happen to any other kid, and we will not allow it to continue to happen on our campuses. To our community and to the Blake community, again, to the family, we apologize for this, but we're going to make sure we find out what happened, and we're going to make sure we get to the bottom, doing our investigations and do something about it. So again, Mr. Chair, I wanted to make that comment, and I want the family to know, again, we're sorry for what happened to you and your child. That concludes my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Mr. Bridges?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Dodge asked me to request authority to advertise a public hearing to adopt revised school board policies at the next school board meeting.
So what's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So what was the motion again, please, Mr. Bridges?
Just a motion to approve authority to advertise a public hearing for revised school board policies in the next school board meeting.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Matthews, did you have a report for us? Thank you. So we'll move on to board members' reports. Mr. Townsend?
Yeah, I was going to have I have props and all sorts of things. I was going to do a whole big thing tonight, but I'm going to hold off on that. I think there are a lot of people who want to talk to us. I'll get to that next week. There was something that I forgot to mention at the work session today that I'd been hearing about. There's a policy around bags at stadiums. That's I don't recall that coming before us. If it did and I missed it, I apologize for that. But there's specifically some concern around not allowed to carry cameras in camera bags. I understand, why we have that policy, but I wonder if there was an ability to look at it to see if there's some. I think it's not practical for people to carry camera equipment if they don't have a bag to carry it in, and so that was something that's been raised by a couple of people to me, and if it's possible for Safe Schools to kind of take a look at that to see if there's a reasonable compromise that we could come to on that, I would appreciate it. And just to dovetail on what the superintendent said, I appreciate that statement. I certainly also apologize for what happened. We talked a lot about this today during our work session. A lot of thought about how not just to prevent the act from happening, but how to better wrap ourselves around the parents and the family. And we these are very, very, very difficult things. They tear at the fabric of our country and our community, and it hurts. It hurts to see that, and it hurts to know that we didn't prevent it. And there are a lot of human beings in here, and we all want to do better, and we want to make every child as safe as we can possibly make that child. And anyway, I appreciate folks coming to talk to us about it, and we'll be willing to listen. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Ms. Fortney?
Oh, yeah, I too got a little bit of, but my standard answer on the bags was they're doing it for a reason, as far as I can tell, and I want everybody to be safe. I just think, again, the rollout was a bit, I think some people got it like 3 hours before the game. Now, I don't know where that dropped off at, but that's what I heard. I commented today on Ms. Porteous and her staff, the new teacher reception, and somebody reached out to me and had just a really great idea that it would be nice if we could do that to all new employees and I wanted to make sure I made that a public comment. That was a great idea, and it looked like it was well received today. I did attend an education summit in Osceola County. Congressman Soto was there. They had county commissioner, they had the union, they had school board members, the superintendent. It appeared to me everybody was working together to solve Osceola County's problems. I look forward to that here in Polk. The Summerlin 9/11 remembrance, unbelievably well run, I guess I could say. All by the students, by the way. ESC advisory the other night was very interesting. We had a huge turnout. It just goes to show that folks are interested in helping our schools be successful and having their voices heard. Dundee Elementary, I saw Lena here. I went out to their community service day. Oh my gosh, those kids, oh my God, so cute. They had scientists, beekeepers, law enforcement. They were just awesome. They do such a good job out there. I love visiting that school. Speaking of great schools, Stevens Elementary, I sat with a drum session. I play the radio. That's what I play. And that was proven to me. And last but not least, Saturday, I attended at Florida Southern College an Equality Florida training. And they are also on board with public schools and education. I just feel like we have strength in numbers and we need to stick together. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recently, we had an opportunity to create a nominating committee, a naming committee for the new elementary school up in Davenport. And the committee came back with a recommendation, and the committee requested that I present it to the Davenport City Commission, which we did back on September the 5th, right after the Hurricane Dorian thing. And so I just want to thank Pam Luce, our Senior Coordinator of Facilities Planning, and Shannon Brown, principal of the new Davenport Elementary School. And we were greeted by Mayor Robinson, the Vice Mayor Summerlin, and the city commissioners. And with their blessing, we're hoping to bring back the new name of the school to superintendent to put on an agenda for the board to vote. It was unanimous. Members of the committee include Harriet Rust, who's from the Davenport Historical Society, Michelle Townley, Roderick Gray, Kelly Callahan, and the other members I mentioned, and it was unanimous to move forward in recommending the name Davenport Elementary for Northeast Polk's new elementary school. So we're very excited. I know construction is well underway as of this summer, and we definitely need, as you can see, we had two new schools, two new properties bought recently for that. So the Northeast continues to grow. And we're very pleased that we received the blessing of the City Commission to move forward with that name. In addition to that, there was a wonderful retirement party that was held by staff at Davenport School of the Arts for Mr. Brian Keir. As most of you may know, Mr. Keir's been around a long time, and he and his wife have wonderful plans to move forward in retirement. I know he's still on staff through the end of the year, but it was wonderful, and Superintendent was able to attend. Mr. Hill was there, and it was a wonderful evening to recognize a man whose heart, and it's so funny because he's a football player and he played for Clemson, and yet he was able to come back to the community in which he grew up and start a school for the arts way back when. We go back a long ways because I was at the chamber at the time in Haines City, and he came up and approached the chamber and said, hey, would you support us if we reach out and try to change Davenport School to Davenport School of the Arts and bring the arts component to Northeast Polk? And so here we are, many, many years later, and it was a wonderful evening with a lot of alumni and a lot of staff and members to recognize all the time and effort that Mr. Keir has put in his whole heart to that school. So we're very excited that Ms. Brayton is now taken over, and it's going to continue to rise and continue to make the district proud. So, Mr. Keir, we wish you all the very best if you're listening, and wish you and Holly much happiness in this next stage of your life. So, we thank you. And, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Ms. Reynolds?
Yes, September has been a busy month, even with the hurricane. I think Sarah and I sat together again this year and cried again at the 9/11 ceremony. If you haven't had a chance to attend, it is one of the most beautiful ceremonies I think I've ever been to. It's completely student run, and they update it every year, and it just gets better and better. And it's so well done, all by the students. The FSB Legislative Committee had their legislative all-day meeting last Thursday. So they have prepared the tentative legislative agenda, which will go to the full board at our December meeting before session starts in January. And it should be going out as well either this week or next so that you all will see it before December. Also, I just want to bring up, I know that all of you were so excited about the lip sync battle last year, even though I didn't win, mainly because of the superintendent's comments, I think. But even though I didn't win, it still is a great fundraising event. She's one of our judges. She will be one of our judges again this year. And one of our contestants is Miss Cuvonda Birdsong, who is principal of Garner. So if you are free on the night of October 10th, you can get tickets online at www.celebritylipsyncbattle.com. No idea how they got that username because it seems like it would be popular. But she is one of our celebrity contestants. I've gotten to see a sneak peek of both of her numbers. You will not want to miss it, I assure you. And all of the funds raised go back to supporting public education in the Winter Haven area. So it is a great night to enjoy. And I had one more before I go into. We also, I know I give an update on PEP almost every month, but that's because they're doing a ton of great things in the Winter Haven area for our local schools. They have restructured. They have their elections for their incoming board next month, but they have aligned very closely with Polk Vision, and I know Reba is still here from Polk Vision, and have been able to make sure that we're utilizing those resources as well for the literacy committee, some of our attendance committees, things like that. So it just is very encouraging to see our city and county partnerships working together, and I would encourage every city to see what Polk Vision's doing because they can help a lot as far as aligning our resources throughout the county. I also want to comment, my phone has been ringing, I think, since about 11 o'clock yesterday morning. I've received probably over 100 emails, text messages, phone calls. I have unfortunately not been able to respond to all of them because we've been meeting since noon today. But your text messages, phone calls, they have all been heard. I know the superintendent has Carolyn ready to address later this evening. So I just want to let you know that I have received all of them, and I'm working on getting back to each of them, but it's been a long day here as well. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Madam Superintendent, would you like to defend your reputation as a judge?
I will say Jessica Solano was a judge too, so but it's fine. It's a great cause.
Yes, I will defend it, but I will be back again this year, so be ready.
And next year she's gonna be a lip syncer.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Fields?
I just have a couple of items. Today is IT Professional Day, and I would like to recognize the IT department and the schools that have IT staff for the great work that they do with a lot of limited resources. We still do a great job for our students and for our school district. They do, rather. And then I wanted to congratulate 4 people that were awarded the annual Legacy Award at the Polk County Alumni Chapter for the Bethune-Cookman University on August the 27th. And 2 of the people that were recognized are actually retirees of our school district. One of them is Dr. Sally Childs. She's a retired principal. Miss Vivian Underwood, she's a retired principal. And then Dolores Johnson, she's retired from the Agricultural and Labor Program in Winter Haven as the president and CEO. And then Mr. Anthony Gordon, who is the owner of Jared Gordon Ford in Winter Haven. And all these wonderful people were recognized at the luncheon. And then we heard from the new president of Bethune-Cookman University, Dr. LaCrete. And he was very encouraging, and we wish them the very best, and we thank them for all that they do in our community. And then I just wanted to kind of piggyback on something that Kim Long mentioned, not Kim Long, I'm sorry, Ms. Cheryl Joe, when she was talking about the opportunity that's provided to many of our employees through the USF program. And Kathleen High School had a large group of employees that were able to be in receipt of their master's degree through the program that's provided. And I can't say enough of that. And having 8 cohorts within the last how many years, Miss Jackie? The last 2 years. To me, that's amazing, and that's really a draw for a lot of people coming into the school district, being able to get their credentials as a part of their employment with the school district. So I just wanted to congratulate all of them for the hard work that they do. And then the last thing is the initiatives that Polk Vision has in place, to me, is just amazing. And some of the things that Kim Long talked about today, it's just awesome that they are willing to invest and to make a difference, to help make a difference in our community. And the Awareness Month is just one of the things that I think is going to continue to be impactful, especially for our kids and their families understanding the value and the importance of going to school on a regular basis and learning. So I want to thank the Polk Vision staff, and they have a very small staff. I think we all know that. And it's amazing what they're able to do with a lot of volunteers and a lot of support from the community. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Ms. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to wrap this up quickly. We had 3 students at Lake Gibson's Business Academy that were awarded internships with the prestigious Lockheed Martin. It was the first time Lockheed Martin has reached out to do that for our students. They'll experience hands-on learning and gain valuable work experience. It's part of partnering with our community for our students. I also want to make known that Lake Gibson High School is the academy that's been around the longest. It's our oldest academy. We are lucky to still have the teacher. Mrs. Wallace is still serving in that capacity in that business academy. And we appreciate Lockheed Martin and other companies that are reaching out to give our students hands-on opportunity that will lead to jobs, will lead to scholarships. They will be doing this while they're in school. And we appreciate all that they're doing at Lake Gibson. Ms. Fortney mentioned the Parents ESC Advisory. We had 60-plus parents show up, and I'm telling you that is our efforts to lean in and listen to the community. We had good conversation today about doing that, and I think we need to continue to do that, and along with each other. I think we're seeing gains in our communication. I got to attend a program at Auburndale High School, which hosted Caldwell Elementary and Mrs. Hill and her students. It was called a Scholars Dinner, and the motto was growing leaders and learners every day. The students led the program. They met us outside. It was really neat to see what 5th graders were doing there. I enjoyed that very much. And the Auburndale Rotary, we've mentioned the Rotary already, and it's one of the civic organizations that really sponsors and takes care of our schools. And Auburndale Rotary showed up for these kids. They weren't related to them. They just have a vested interest in seeing our students succeed. So I appreciate the Auburndale Rotary and what they are doing. I want to mention that the staff during Hurricane Dorian, even though we had mixed messages and wasn't sure where things were going, we had administration and teachers in those schools preparing them as shelters, the ones that were identified. So I want to recognize that. The fact that they went out and were able to make things ready in case of an emergency. I know a lot of us were waiting at home to see why are schools open, when are they closed. I want the public to know that we serve as shelters for our community, and we had staff on site taking care of those campuses. Thanks again for coming out tonight. We are here to listen. I think moving beyond compliance and moving into empathy and compassion for every situation is our goal, and I think we're going to see progress made. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. In just a moment, I'm going to open the floor to public comments, and as I typically do, I'm going to remind speakers that we very much value your comments. We certainly value your positive comments about the district, but we also value your frustrations and your concerns. We want to hear from you. As I always do, I ask you to stay focused on the issues and not on individuals. Please do not issue disparaging remarks or make disparaging remarks about the superintendent, her staff, or other board members. If it's necessary to make disparaging remarks, please direct those towards me. We had a rather difficult situation that occurred in our district recently, and there was a video that went public. It was unimaginably difficult to watch. It was just incredibly emotional. And I'm certain, well, actually I have cards. There are folks who would like to speak to that, and certainly we want you to do that, and we encourage you to do that. Please bear in mind that there are necessary and required ongoing investigations, and we ask that you please be patient with us as those investigations are conducted. We often have, not often, but occasionally we have parents who want to speak about their children, and certainly they're entitled to do that. We would remind you that this is a public meeting and those comments become part of the public domain. And finally, I would ask that whatever you wish to speak to, please stay focused on the issues. I respectfully request that you not identify other people's children or students by their name or other identifiable traits or characteristics, most importantly because it could be infringing on their legal rights. And before we do that, just very quickly, I'm going to ask Mr. Bridges to offer a few comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These are frustrating conversations indeed. And certainly I join with the board chair and the other members of the school board in my concern about what has happened and our desire to meet parents where you live, to help do what we can to smooth hurt feelings and to communicate with you as to what is going on in the district. That said, I do need to speak for a moment about the laws that constrain not only the school board and the superintendent, but the principals and the teachers and everyone in our schools. Every student in the United States of America is guaranteed by the Congress of the United States a right to privacy. Just as every parent in the United States of America has a right to access the student records of their own student, they have a right to privacy against other people accessing those records. And those rights apply to everyone in this room who has a student in public school. What that means is that we're sometimes in the difficult position of not being able to answer every question that a parent might have about disciplinary matters in a school, and specifically what might transpire in terms of discipline against people's children other than their own. That is frustrating, and I absolutely understand that. Please understand that principals, teachers, administrators will share with you everything that they can. There will come a time when investigative reports that are not student records become a matter of public record. They may be redacted to protect the identities of minors. But what the law requires of the school district and every employee in this district is that they maintain the privacy of every student. And that means that we can share information with the parents of that student, other educators who have a legitimate educational need for that information, and as a court may direct. But we cannot speak to Mrs. Jones about the grades or the attendance or the disciplinary actions against Johnny Smith. Once again, I understand the frustration that may cause. We will be as open as we can. I can tell you that when there are infractions against our Code of Student Conduct, every district in the state of Florida has one. We're required to adopt one. They address a broad variety of offenses and the sanctions that can be imposed if students violate it. And that is available on our website, and it can be shared with you by people at the school as well. But that can show you what sanctions are available for various disciplinary infractions. Once again, we will be as straightforward as we can there, but please bear with us if you hear a principal or an assistant principal or a dean or a teacher say, I'm sorry, that is something I cannot share with you because of the privacy rights of others. Those are also the privacy rights that protect your children. So it is what it is. That is the law of the United States of America. It has been adopted word for word by the state of Florida, and the policies of the school board of Polk County reflect it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. So we do have green cards, so we'll call on those folks first, and then after we've exhausted those, if anyone else would like to come forward and speak, you're welcome to do so. So we'll start with Anita Carson and John Van Volkenberg after Ms. Carson.
Good afternoon. My name is Anita Carson. I am one of the people who's called Sarah Beth. I also called several other of you and wrote emails. I have taught in this district for 7 years. I've taught at both traditional Doane schools, and I currently teach at Lake Alfred Polytech. My concern today is that currently we are set to lose 5 teaching units 5 weeks into school. Sorry. I feel like this decision is going to destabilize the foundation that we have set for our students. We were asked to get as many people as we could to apply last year. We had 974 applications. I feel like we did our job. Our enrollment number is currently 36 below what we were told the goal was, which was 700. And you're wanting to cut 5 units with 36 kids short. I don't understand where that number is coming from, but it will increase our class sizes and it will decrease morale for our teachers dramatically. We talk about students first. This is not a students first move. I would like to ask all of the people who are here today to support Lake Alfred teachers and students, if you would stand, because we brought a large group of teachers and parents and community members. These are not all teachers, but we have about a quarter of our staff here today. We are concerned for our kids. 5 teachers leaving represents 13% of our classrooms. That's a huge number. So you'll be hearing from other people. They might have better numbers, better stories for you, but I wanted to make sure that you heard that we are worried about our kids. So that's all I have, but thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Carson. Yeah, did you want to say something this morning?
I just wanted to thank all y'all for coming out. I did answer all the emails that you have sent me. I have forwarded them. I feel your pain. And Ms. Bridges, I think, is going to address some of the things. Superintendent Byrd, we brought it up in work session today. I stand with you. Thank you for being teachers in Polk County.
Madam Superintendent, did you have some comments?
Ms. Bridges, we can hear from the teachers, and then Ms. Bridges can address their concerns.
Okay.
If they want to do it in a whole group, we can have them meet in Apple Bistro, or she can address them right here afterwards, after they speak.
Okay, so after everyone has an opportunity to speak about Lake Alfred, Polly?
That's correct.
Then we'll meet, and then Ms. Bridges will meet with them in Apple Bistro, which is right next door. So next, I'm going to ask, did you want to speak to that issue or a different issue, Mr.?
I'm just here just in general.
Okay, so would you mind if we have the folks who relate to this issue speak first?
Totally.
We'll ask Carson Whitlock to come forward, please. And we have Indiana McGill.
Good evening. My name is Kason Whitlock. I am a 7th grade science teacher at Lake Alfred Polytech. I came to Lake Alfred Polytech Academy in the 2017-2018 year. I had been at Southwest Middle School for the first 2 years of my teaching career and was looking for a change. I had been told to stay away from Lake Alfred, then Lake Alfred Adair Middle School, that the behavior at that school was not good, that it had been a failing school for a long time. But one teacher came to me at lunch and told me that it's under new leadership. So in my first year at the newly minted Lake Alfred Polytech, the first thing I noticed was how well behaved the students were. Then I noticed learning. Students were making gains. In my first year, the school under the leadership of Ms. Grice and the hard work of the staff and the faculty, the students made incredible gains, moving to a C school for the first time in 11 years. It had been failing school for 11 years. It had been one of 5 schools being considered to be taken over by charter companies and made the greatest gains of all of them. Since the 17-18 year, we have maintained our C and are headed in the right direction. Now it comes out that the district wants to take 5 units. This will have significant negative impact on our student achievement and student behavior. Students have stability here. They have built a rapport with their teachers, and that is something that once removed is very hard to get back for a new teacher coming in. I know this because coming out of Southeastern University, my first teaching job, I came into a classroom at Southwest Middle School that had no permanent teacher for most of the year and had multiple subs in about a 4-month span. And it was very hard for me to establish any sort of really good learning environment when you're still trying to build the rapport with the kids that another teacher had originally built. So I implore you, look past the numbers, look past the data, which since we've come up to a senior still rising, supports our position anyway. Look at the kids I mean, it says right there, and it says on our website, is not our tagline, students first. So my point is simple. If you want the achievement at Lake Alfred Polytech Academy to keep increasing, you need to stay the course. We need to keep the school as is. We need to keep the teachers that these students have built relationships with over the first 5 weeks of school in place so we can keep achieving at a high level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitlock. Ms. McGill?
Deanna McGill. I am the reading interventionist at Lake Alfred Polytech Academy. I am also here as a parent of our school and an active member of the PTO. I am not very savvy in math, I have to confess that, but when I heard the alarming news that we were going to lose 5 teachers in our AP2 position, I started looking at our numbers because something did not add up. We were told that we needed a quota of around 700 students to keep all of our units, and as I checked our unified program, we currently have 664 students on our campus, meaning that we didn't make our quota by only 36 students. In my head, that doesn't amount, not even equal of a 1/4 of a teacher loss. My son was in our school last year, 8th grader, and the loss of that 1 unit that we had last year greatly impacted him. He had to cope with schedule changes, kids being added to his classrooms, and this change affected him ultimately in his FSA scores. All because we had to move students all around from civic classrooms, ELA classrooms, due to that missing unit that we had last year. This year, I have a current 6th grader, and I don't want him to have the same impact because he is coming from his elementary school with scores of 4s and 5s. Our school is a Title I school where most of our population is low-income based, and we do not know what the situations might be at home. According to Eric Jensen, when teaching with poverty in mind, we must consider our students' emotional baggage. A small social or emotional disruption can take up to 45 to 60 minutes for a student to calm down and refocus in class. Imagine the loss of these 5 units will cause severe emotional distress to our student population. We have students that have ASD and other disability, and emotion and self-esteem will be affected to these radical changes. It is not the change that we want or need for our students. Lastly, how can we advocate the loss of these units for our campus when we are the only magnet school in Polk County that does not have a direct feeder school? We recruited intensely last year, only to lose our accepted students to the community and schools around us. If the school board interest is children's first, let's provide them with the teachers that they need. We do not need to lose 5 teachers, nor our AP2 position, just because we're only missing 36 students. I invite you, come to our school and look how we are working. I guarantee you that you will not want to mess with the good teaching environment that's going on in our campus. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGill. And I think the next one is Brandon Lands. Did I get that correctly? Correct? Lane? Brandon Lane?
Good evening. My name is Brandon Lane, and I work at Lake Alfred Polytech Academy. Yesterday, I learned that the foundation we've been building this school year is about to crumble, as Lake Alfred Polytech is poised to lose 5 teaching units and an AP2 position because our enrollment numbers are short of our goal. We have lots of data about why that is. Tonight, though, I'd rather speak about the students at Lake Alfred Polytech. 5 weeks into the school year, students are used to the routines and procedures that we've built with and for them. They know their teachers and the expectations their teachers have for them. The school atmosphere is clear and focused on student learning. Sadly, that's going to change the moment the new schedules hit their hands, and after 5 of their teachers are transferred to a different school. The day these changes go into effect won't be a day spent on curriculum or standards like today was. Happy Constitution Day, by the way. Instead, it will mean several more days spent on procedures and routines, important foundational things that have to occur before real teaching happens again. Changes like this are a major disruption to the educational process, and it will have a long-lasting effect. If a student caused a disruption like that, we would refer them. When the DOE causes a classroom trauma through their VAM scam, we're angry about it. How should we react when the district causes a school-wide trauma? Do we shrug our shoulders? It's going to take time to settle these classes down after this disruption. I know because we saw the consequences of losing 2 teaching units last year after the school year had begun. How much time and momentum will this transition cost us when it's 5 teachers? This likely will hamper us in becoming a B school, and I'd be quite happy to retain our current C grade if this happens. Currently, we have 1 less para and 2 less teachers than we had on September 17 last year, and we're fully staffed. We currently have 160 more students than we had last year, including more with exceptional and 504 plan needs. This means larger class sizes and are physically smaller than normal classrooms. It also means that students receive less individualized attention in class and less supervision while they wait for the 33 buses that take them home from school each evening. The district solution is to cut 5 more teachers and 1 AP2 on top of the losses we've already sustained through the years. Look it up. At every point, the staff and students rise to the challenge, but at some point we reach a level of unsustainability. This will be that point. This will not only negatively impact student achievement, but it will also negatively impact student behavior, and we're already running leaner than we have in years. We're speaking out to tell you this is not a student's first move, and we know because we actually teach them.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak to the Lake Alfred Poly loss of units?
Good evening. My name is Ember McLeod. I currently teach 8th grade civics at Lake Alfred Polytech Academy. I don't have anything polished and fancy to say, and I might cry. You're not taking 5 teachers and an administrator. You're taking part of our family. Gonna cry. Woo, okay. I got this, okay. And that's what we've always been, even when we were Lake Alfred Adair. And everyone said, oh, that school. Why do you teach there? Why do you bother? We bother because to you, they're students and numbers and all of that, but to us, they're our kids. They're why we work ridiculous hours for little tiny paychecks and why we spend $1,000 every year of our own money plus to take care of them. It's why we go to bat every day with parents who are frustrated and feel like they're not heard, and we stand with them and they stand with us. We are in a relationship together with them. Make no mistake, we're not doing this just for fun. We do it because we love them. We love them like our own flesh and blood. And if you take them from us, you aren't just hurting us, you're hurting our community, because we ask them to trust us. We ask them to believe in us, and we promise to carry them forward. But we can't do that if the district is standing on our necks. We already accept that we don't get paid. Whatever, fine, whatever for right now. Right now, I promise, right now only. But we don't accept you taking our family members. We don't accept that you think that this is not our family. Okay? Please let us keep our 5 teachers, our 5 family members, and our administrator, who we are proud to say our administrators are equally part of our family. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McLeod.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Schmeling. I am the Advanced Civics Educator at Lake Alfred Polytech Academy. I am an 18-year veteran teacher. I've taught in 4 districts in South Carolina. I moved to Florida in 2009, and I taught in Orange County before moving to Polk County, which I happen to live in Polk County in Davenport. I came to this school because I was asked to bring my expertise in civics to bring up our civic scores. And the first year that I taught it, we had a 92% passing rate. Now, we leveled up, so that was all advanced students, but members of the community had knocked us. There were lots of negativity that was printed in the newspapers, and 3 districts said that we cheated with our civic scores. I am a stellar teacher. I do not do anything amoral. I taught my students from point A to point B. I know how to move my students because I have a master's degree in brain research in education. And I would just like to say that we have been the underdog. We have gone from being a failing school to a passing school. We have maintained that, but yet we're not getting assistance. We're not getting support. We're not getting accolades. And I don't ask those accolades for myself because you know what? It's a team effort. It's not my 92%. It's collectively the 92% of my students and myself. Last year, it was 85% in my class, but I tore my Achilles tendon clean off the bone, so I was gone for 11 weeks of instructional time. So I would just like to say, I want us to put students first. I want us to celebrate all that we have achieved at Lake Alfred Polytech. It saddens me to see that still on the website we're Lake Alfred Adair because there's a negative connotation with that. And there's, like my colleague said, oh, it's that school. No, it's not that school. We have changed. Our kids have changed. We have a stellar staff. And the person that was just up here before me, she taught civics for the first time last year. And she had a huge, tremendous gain. Her classes were, I think, 74%. Mine was 85%. We lost a teacher. It's not a challenge. Okay, we lost another teacher that was a trio of 3 because our population had grown and we had leveled up. So we need your support. We need you to stand behind us. We need you to come to our school. I invite you to come to our school. I had a member of the superintendent staff, which I will not mention by name, said that she was going to make sure that we were celebrated. And it has yet to happen, ladies and gentlemen. Please come visit us. Please come take a look and don't take away our teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Melling. So,
I will take you up on that since I used to teach there. Y'all keep negating that. And I left Jewett to go to Lake Alfred to help make a difference there, so I feel your pain.
So Ms. Bridges will meet with the folks from Florida Poly next door in the Apple Bistro. If you'd like to make your way over there, she'll be happy to talk to you. Mr. Volkenberg, you've been very patient. Thank you. Same thing. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Superintendent, board members, Mr. Bridges. I'm a resident here in Polk County. I have 2 children with IEPs in the district, and I just wanted to come and talk about that. It also happens that it ties into budget questions and budget statement, but since I did not have the new budget for 2019 and 20, my comments will be on the 2018-19 budget. I know I have less than 3 minutes, so I'll just make a few statements. If I ask questions, they're rhetorical, but if you can ask me after my 3 minutes, that'll be fine. I've had a chance to meet a few of you just in 3 weeks' time, so I'm glad to see Ms. Miller, Ms. Fortney, Ms. Bird out in the community with the special education community. So I appreciate that and speaking on behalf of parents and family members. One of my boys had a 2-hour bus ride home the first week he was in school. Who do you think I tried to call? Transportation? No, nobody's there. Call the school. You think the principals are there after 4:30? No. 5:10, the bus shows up. 2 old lady drivers. We were delayed and we were this. 2 hours and 10 minutes my son was on the bus ride home. I asked people why that happened. Some people I hear, we don't have the money. Some people I hear, well, it's the IDEA Act. So I said, my gosh, let me look up that IDEA Act. Anybody here know when that IDEA Act became bill? 1975. Is it a surprise every year that we've got the IDEA Act in 2019? No. I read this from an article of frequently asked questions from the IDEA 2004 resource page. Question and answers on serving children with disabilities eligible for transportation. The question in the frequently asked questions: the transportation provisions in 34 CFR 300.34 C16 mean that an LEA is responsible for transporting children with disabilities to and from the locations where the students receive special education and related services, even if the LEA has to redirect the transportation routes or provide an aid for safety? Answer: yes. An IEP team determines that a child with disability requires special transportation arrangements, accommodations, including an aid for safety. The LEA must provide these services. Question: if children with disabilities spend a significant amount of time being transported to and from school, as well as to and from another location to receive special education and related services, is the child entitled to receive additional school time to make up for this? Answer: neither B of the IDEA nor the regulations address length of school day. Determine is a decision left to the SEA. However, the IDEA defines school day as any day, including a partial day, that children in attendance at school for instructional purposes, additionally those with or without disabilities. In general, a school day for a child with a disability should be no longer than a school day for general education students.
Thank you, Mr. Volker. Madam Superintendent, could we have someone meet with Mr. Van Volkenburg, please?
She's right at the back. Dr.
Okay.
Stanky is right there.
Thank you. Tracy Dannemiller?
Good evening. My name is Tracy Danny Miller. February 28th, 2019. My 8-year-old granddaughter was forcefully hit in the neck at school in art class, causing an abrasion, broken blood vessels in her neck, confirmed by a doctor. With multiple witnesses present, and after hearing my granddaughter's story of how it happened, the principal at Medola Elementary stated she couldn't say if my granddaughter did or didn't do this to herself. I proceeded to comment that based on her statement, that the principal thought there was a possibility she did this to herself. My granddaughter sat in the chair across from her principal that she has been told to go to if she had problems, holding both of her hands on her ears and sobbing, saying, "I didn't do this. He did this to me. I didn't do anything wrong." I responded that that would be self-mutilation, and the principal was obligated to report that. I still wait for that report. Last month at school last year, I had a phone conversation with our superintendent and the deputy superintendent, informing of issues still not being addressed, and was told they would get back with me, quote, in a couple of days. Again, I'm still waiting. Then an extra conference, April 25th, was called in regard to my granddaughter and her teacher's concerns. Her teacher stated, seems, quote, she has a lot on her mind. Noting the difference, I noted right there, they told me that they noted the difference right after spring break in March. Her incident happened February 28th. When requested this to be documented, the teacher stated after everything that had happened, after the media got involved, and I was adamant about speaking, she would have to consult with her boss. I never heard back. I gave more than ample time to respond and to why Gabriella's mother and I, that's my granddaughter, I don't mind saying her name, had to be escorted off the property with our volunteer badges on and not able to use the back door as we had previously done. Keep in mind, this was after school hours. We were not loud, we were not belligerent, we acted no differently than we had in the past. After not addressing this issue, I sent an email to the principal on 5/30, almost a month later, asking the same question. The response was totally sidestepped that specific concern that I had. In continuing situations, it seems to be, quote, standard or the norm. If you will sidestep issues this happens continually. Based on, isn't there something in the principles of professional conduct for the education profession in Florida that frowns on this? Thinking of along the lines of, number one, shall make reasonable effort to protect the student from continuing harm or, conditions harmful to learning and or to the student's mental and or physical health and or safety. Or number 5, shall not intentionally expose a student to cause embarrassment or disparagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dana Miller. Could we have someone meet, Madam Superintendent, with Ms. Dana Miller?
I'll have Mr. Hill, he's next door right now with them.
Okay, thank you.
Reach back out.
Brandon and Lauren Springfield.
Good evening. Tonight, I come before you as a mother who is deeply disheartened with the event that took place at our child's school last week. There is no need to go into detail of what the event was, as you all have seen it. It was and continues to be deplorable. As school administrators and school board members, the job we as parents entrust you with is to educate our students and create a safe learning environment for them to thrive. Unfortunately, last week, the system failed our child and us as parents. While boys will be boys and fights are inevitable, this was not a fight or an altercation. This was an attack. And while kids are kids and they will talk about each other and they will make fun of each other, there is not one thing that will ever make assaulting someone okay. I think that it's important to note that zero tolerance is important in situations like this. It is swift and it is immediate, and everyone knows the repercussions of such behavior. So there is no need to protect privacy of those who cause harm because the punishment aligns with the severity of the actions. Every parent here this evening deserves to know what is being done to protect our children. We deserve to be communicated within a timely manner, and we deserve clear and consistent policies to be carried out across the board rather than implemented just occasionally. We deserve school policies that align with protecting victims' rights, not sheltering the accused. And that in the light of evidence that demonstrates the nature of events at hand, that the adults in charge of making decisions understand the difference between fabrications and truth. Many parents here tonight are frustrated. They have said that you as a body have refused to adequately protect their children. Story after story displays a broken system interested in self-preservation and silencing those wrong by trying to fault the victim. You have the power to work together with a community of parents willing to help develop policies, procedures, and standard work that is based on successful, learned experiences and best practices. However, I am sad to say that I have little hope. Our county is better than this. Our county is better than the divisive rhetoric that has ignited across our country. I leave you with this. If this was your child, would you be okay with how this situation was handled? Would you stop fighting for the rights of your child? I'm sure the answer to both of these questions is no. So please do not stop fighting for our child and every other child who is in our county, including yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. and Ms. Springfield. January Lacey.
My name is January Lacey, and I am the mother of 4 children aging from 2 to 17. I have 3 children that are currently in the Polk County school system. I have unfortunately been silent for too long. After what happened to Mr. and Mrs. Springfield's child, I couldn't stay silent any longer. I have a 17-year-old in high school. She's a senior this year. She has been bullied for 5 years. She was at McKeel Academy in 8th grade, where we waited 4 years for her to get accepted into that school. She got accepted, and immediately this boy started bullying her. The boy got in severe trouble, but still was not kicked out of McKeel Academy. We have attempted now on 2 occasions to get a restraining order against this child because he is now at the high school where she is at. Still, last week, no injunction. Second week of school, my 6th grader who goes to Lakeland Highlands Middle School is brutally beaten, okay? Kid comes up behind him, beats him. He is on the phone with me for about 30 minutes before any adult is even around. This is in the open, after school. I pick him up in the car line to avoid bus fights. I, as a parent, have sacrificed being a stay-at-home mom so that I could be there for my children. But my question for the school board is what is being done in our schools to protect our children? Every day since he has got beat up, I have anxiety about, am I going to get a call today? Just so you know, there have been 2 additional instances since the original fight. He sent me a video last Thursday in class of a boy hitting him with his lanyard on the back of the neck. Let's go back to the fight that he had. I asked, can I please see the video? Not that I want to see a video of my son getting beat, but I deserve as a parent to see. Oh no, that's just reserved for the other students' parents because he's the one that got in trouble. That has to change. The moment as a child or anybody you decide to put your hand or assault another individual, you give up those rights. You should be exposed. You should be exposed. And I, as a parent, I am not asking for a name of the child. I am not asking for their address of where they live. I am asking, what is the punishment, and does the punishment fit the crime? And when does my child have to worry about, oh, is so-and-so coming back to school? This has to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lacey. Catherine Bates. You have a Catherine Bates?
My name is Catherine Bates. I have 2 teenagers. I have individual stories of both children being bullied through the years, not to the degree that we have heard about today. Nevertheless, it was never dealt with then. Being in the position of an educator, a teacher, a school board member, these are not positions sought out for money-making opportunities. These are positions held by people that want to educate, mentor, and support our future generations. So the following definitions will probably be recognized. As you're listening to the definitions, think about the connections. The first one is the current state of affairs. The second is what we want for our children. And the third is what we need as an education system. Number 1, foolishness. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Number 2, a state of being included, being part of the whole. Number 3, liable, subject to obligation to report, explain, or justify something, responsibility. These 3 words are insanity, inclusion, and accountability. What we currently have going on in our school system today is insanity. What we want for all of our children is inclusion, whether it's IEPs, ESE programs, just everyday stuff. What we need in our school system is accountability. Insanity. We are still having numerous bullying incidences happening in our schools, and students are not being held accountable or even following a protocol, whatever that is, that removes the kid from the school when they are recognized as a bully or a potential bully. Inclusion, embrace, embody. Every student deserves to go to school to learn, grow, not fear harassment, thus developing other issues such as anxiety, panic attacks, depression, or even worse, suicide. Accountability. We send our children to you daily expecting that they will be safe, cared for, and mentored. If the employee, in whatever position that is, cannot follow these simple protocols in reporting possible troublemakers or in reporting bullying attacks, they should not be in this position. Very simple. We are held accountable in our jobs, and it's not too much to expect the same out of our educators. I'm not a teacher hater. I have several dear friends that are teachers. I am just part of the community that wants better for our teachers. My kids are almost out of school, but their children, what are we leaving for them? Step up, speak up. If not, find another job.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and offer comments at this time? Hi.
My name is Luani Sanchez. I actually am a teacher. I work for Orange County, but obviously for what happened, it sparked a fire in me, and I said I'm going to show up. I just have a question. Does October 19th, 2006 ring a bell to anybody in this room? No? That day, I will never forget. I was at University High School, and a student was murdered on campus. Michael Nieves, a friend of mine's brother. You guys don't understand how it feels to return to a school after experiencing that type of violence, where he was stabbed to death in front of other students. God forbid that that happened last week or to any of these parents, to get that phone call, your son is in the hospital. God forbid that blood is on the county, on your Polk County. Not only will you have that type of blood on you if you don't take action now, but as the person previously, suicide rates for students have gone up. I'm a teacher. And what she said, I'm not bashing other teachers, I am a teacher. But if you are not willing to not only educate these students, but emotionally raise them correctly, then you shouldn't be in the classroom. If you're not stepping up when you hear the slightest type of bullying in your classroom and you don't stop whatever is happening in your classroom and address it correctly, you shouldn't be a teacher. Because not only are we teachers and we're in the classrooms to educate them, but we're there to fundamentally help these students. We don't know what they experience at home. We don't know what they see at home. We don't know what type of violence they see at home. If you have a bully in your student, in your class, it's your responsibility to stop it, unless it's just gonna continue. So I ask you guys to please do not let another Michael Nieves, October 19th, 2006 occurrence happen again, because it will happen again if you guys let these type of things slide, like it's no big deal, it's just, oh, boys will be boys. No, enough of that. Hold these children accountable, just like you guys hold us teachers accountable for what happens in our classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else who would like to come forward and offer comments at this time? Madam Superintendent, did you have anything that you wanted to offer? Okay. Yeah, okay. Reverend Mency?
Good evening, Bishop Mency. Try to be here every time. I sit here this evening and today, and I've listened and I've listened and I've listened. And I'm trying to wrap my mind around all that has been said. One thing I'd like to say, and I hope that parents would take this seriously. I was taught by my parents that charity begins at home and it spreads abroad. I think that you are looking at it one-sided because it can't be all the teachers and the principals and school board members and their responsibility. It's got to be everybody seeing the importance of doing their job. It can't be a one-sided job, and our children need to understand that. I know I came through when boys was boys and they bullied, and I made up my mind one day when I was in, I guess, middle school, that I wasn't going to take it no more. And I fought back. And that kind of let that fella know that I wasn't going to let him beat me. I'm not encouraging fighting, but sometimes you got to take a stand. But the point that I'm looking at is that we look at it, and I was just thinking about all of the stuff that we do with social media. We just put so much stuff out here. It's just almost ridiculous, and we look at it one-sided too. We see that side we want to see, and I think it's almost going to kill us, amen, because of the things that is put out by social media. Sometimes it's not always the right thing, but I think that we can see some good in it, but I think you need to see that other side of it also. So we need to see the importance of working together collectively, amen, to support each other, including parents supporting parents, teachers supporting parents, everybody supporting everybody, because all of these are our children, and they are important, and everybody loves their children. We can't look at it and think it's a lopsided situation. I hate to hear it when it comes out sometimes. So we ask that we just kind of find a way to let's bring ourselves together and look for solutions to help all of us in our endeavor to educate and encourage our children. God bless you tonight.
Thank you, Bishop Mincy. Anyone else? Yes. You can bring them down.
This has to be very important for me to bring my grandbabies down here. Hello, my name is Twana Dutney. I'm owner-operator of Salon Ashanti in Winter Haven. And on Wednesday, September the 11th, around 11:30 a.m., officers responded to a call in the 200 block of Palmetto Avenue Northwest, where my salon is. An individual was shot in the torso. The victim was taken to the hospital, but the shooter remained at large. While officers investigated the scene, another shooting took place just yards from the first shooting. One guy was shot in the neck, in the abdomen, and in the back. This victim died in the streets, right beside a police car. The shooter fled the scene on foot. The shooter shot the victim with 25 to 30 officers present, 2 helicopters flying at a roof's distance, ambulance, fire trucks, and news reporters, detectives, police administrators, and clergy was on the scene. And one of my clients, who's also a police officer, was called in to help work the crime scene. This was early release day for our students. The bus drivers dropped a load of children off in the middle of an active search for a gunman. Children were under the crime scene tape, and they were asked by a police officer several times to stay back, stay back. Several of these children come to my salon after school for popsicles. I'm here today to make sure that there is a plan of action so this never happens again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dudney. Could we have someone meet with her? Okay. Okay. Anyone else like to offer comments at this time? Okay. Yes, sir. Did you have some comments?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is James Williams. I didn't come here to speak today. I came just as moral support for the Springfields, but as I was listening, I had a couple questions come to mind, and I wanted to ask you guys some questions. So I hope that this could be interactive and not just a one-way conversation. Is that possible? I don't know the rules of decorum here. That's not, okay.
We can have someone meet with you, and we're happy to do that, to answer
Okay.
questions.
Ms. Bird, I heard you say that the investigation or whatever was ongoing, right, on that situation. And I want to know, how long does the investigation usually take? I know they can vary. Given the amount of evidence and everything that's in the public sphere right now, how long would an investigation take for this? And then my second question was along the lines of accountability and privacy. I understand that we have to keep private the names of students and identifying factors and everything. But does that also extend to the privacy and accountability for the faculty members or staff that may have been present at the time of the incident? And what has happened or what will happen with that individual, if there was a student if there was a teacher that was there during that time, have they been dealt with, and what will be their repercussions for not keeping the students first and keeping the students safe? Those are my questions.
Madam Superintendent, can we have someone meet with Mr. Williams?
That right now. The rules for adults are completely different from the rules for students.
Okay.
What I mentioned earlier, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act protects the rights of students, not of adults. When the investigation is complete as to any employee, that report of investigation will become a matter of public record and available to anybody who asks for it. Now, if there is student information in it, that might be redacted. But the report of investigation into employee misconduct will be a matter of public record. Does that answer
It
that
has to be
question?
requested, though.
Beg pardon?
It has to be requested?
Yes. Now, this is a matter of public concern. Lots of people are watching. We have the members of the Fourth Estate present today. No doubt it's going to be requested, it's going to be reported, it's going to be out there. But if you would like a copy, yes, you have to make a request for it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
That's that part.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Townsend, did you have some comments?
I just wanted to add, if you looked at, we had an agenda study this morning in which a lot of these issues were actually hashed out. There's some disagreement. I think there's a pretty good long discussion about this. It goes into some detail. So yeah, right. Okay. So it would probably be worth watching. And there's some ideas for enhancing policies and how we address privacy versus protection. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there anyone else who would like to offer comments at this time? Okay. There's no further business before the board. This meeting is adjourned.